This week is Parshas Hachodesh, where we read the first commandment that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us collectively as a people, the mitzvah of Rosh Chodesh, of Kiddush HaChodesh, of sanctifying the new moon. And there's a few questions. Question number one is, why do we read this now, this week, in the period between Purim and Pesach? Question number two is, why was this the first mitzvah that was given to the Bnei Yisrael collectively? And question number three is, what does Tucker Carlson have to do with this at all? So, Bez Hashem, this week we're going to try to answer all these questions. To start, we know that as Yidden, we go by the lunar calendar and not the solar calendar. We count by the moon and not by the sun. Why do we count by the moon and not by the sun? So as we know, the moon has many, many phases. It goes from full moon down to where it's barely a sliver. Yet, even when there's just the tiniest sliver of moon, we know that it will go back to its fullness. The Nesiv Shalom explains that this concept, the moon, alludes to us in our lives. That just like the moon, even when it's just the tiniest sliver, when it's barely visible, when it's completely shrouded in darkness, we know it will regain its full glory, it'll go back to its fullness, it'll go back to the full moon. So too in our lives, we're supposed to believe that even when our lives are shrouded in darkness, even when everything seems completely dark, we barely see a glimmer of light, we're supposed to believe, we're supposed to be B'teach b'Hashem, we're supposed to believe and trust in Hashem, that the light will once again illuminate our lives, that the darkness will be gone. Not only that, but when is a Rosh Chodesh? When do we sanctify the new moon? When are we Mevarchen and when we Kaddish the Chodesh? It's not when we have a full moon, it's not when the moon is there and it's all its glory, it's when it's the tiniest sliver of moon that's visible, that's when it's Rosh Chodesh. Why? Says the Nesiv Shalom, because this is alluding to the concept, this symbolizes HaKadosh Baruch Hu choosing us, the Yidden, in the darkness. That even when everything is so dark, HaKadosh Baruch Hu chooses us. When did this happen? When did HaKadosh Baruch Hu choose us within the darkness? This happened in Mitzrayim. When we were in Mitzrayim, when we were in Galus Mitzrayim, we hit the lowest levels, the 49th level of Tumah. We are at the bottom of the bottom. Before we had the Geula, before we accepted the Torah, before Har Sinai, what did HaKadosh Baruch Hu say? Hashem said, B'ni b'chayri Yisrael, my son, my firstborn, Klal Yisrael. That when we were stuck in the impurity of Egypt, that's when HaKadosh Baruch Hu called us B'ni b'chayri Yisrael. That's when Hashem chose us for His people. Specifically, when we were stuck in the darkness of Mitzrayim. This is this concept that is alluded to by Rosh Chodesh, being when the moon is at the slightest sliver of light, and not when it's in the full moon. It's HaKadosh Baruch Hu choosing us within the darkness. But there's one more idea as well. In Kiddush Havana, the bracha of Kiddush Havana, we say that the moon is constantly renewing itself, and that we're going to be renewed just as the moon gets renewed. That the moon also symbolizes Hischachos. It symbolizes the ability to constantly renew. That every single one of us have the ability to be mechadish ourselves, to renew ourselves. That it doesn't matter what happened until now, it doesn't matter what went on until now, we could constantly choose to renew, to start again. We're approaching the month of Nisan right now. Nisan is a very interesting month. On the one hand, we're halfway through the year. 6 months in, we're 6 months away from Rosh Hashanah, we're 6 months away from the new year. On the other hand, right, in Parshas Hachodesh, which we're reading this week, it calls Chodesh Nisan, Rosh Chodashim. The pasuk says, "Hachodesh hazel lachem Rosh Chodashim Rishon hu lachem l'chadshei Hashana." Nisan, the month of Nisan, is the first month when you count the months of the year. Right, when we count the months of the year, we don't start from Tishrei, which is when the year starts. We start from Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, Tammuz, v'chulu. So what is it? Is Nisan the first month of the year, or is Nisan halfway through the year? So Nisan is halfway through the year, but the reason why Nisan is called the first month of the year is because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving us an opportunity. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling us, renew, winter's over, spring is coming. Here's your chance to start again. Rishon hu l'chadshei Hashana. This could be your New Year's moment right now. Start over, start again right now. This is why we read Parshas Hachodesh right now between Purim and Pesach. It's to symbolize this idea of the new moon constantly renewing itself. That we have the ability right now between Purim and Pesach, we're in a zman of geula, a zman of redemption, a zman of renewal, that we could choose right now renewal as well. So the reason why we read Parshas Hachodesh right now, A, is to show that we can make a fresh start right now. B, We're showing that Hashem chose us to be His people while we were still in the darkness of Mitzrayim. And see, because we just passed Purim and we're right before Pesach, what do we see from both Purim and Pesach? That even when we seem to be shrouded in darkness, even when there seems to be nothing but darkness, the light again will come. Which brings us to Tucker Carlson. What does Tucker have to do with anything? The very first Rashi in Chumash, the first Rashi in his commentary in Chumash says that really the Torah did not have to start from Bereshis. It could have just started from the first mitzvah that the Kadosh Baruch Hu gave us of Hachodesh Hazel Lachem. Why did the Torah start from Bereshis? Why did it go through Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov? Why did it go through our whole history of Galus Mitzrayim until we finally get to the point where we get the mitzvah, where we accept the Torah? Says Rashi that if there will come a point where the non-Jews will say, you guys are listim, you guys are a bunch of thieves, a bunch of crooks, you don't have any claim on Eretz Yisrael, you have no right to Eretz Yisrael, you guys just came and took the land. Came along Rashi, and Rashi said, therefore, the Torah gave us the whole history to show us that no, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the land of Eretz Yisrael, that we really have the claim to Eretz Yisrael. Now, at one point, this seems so abstract. Who? Who are the ones that are claiming that we have no right to the land of Eretz Yisrael? Who are they claiming this to? But now, with Tucker Carlson's comments over the past few weeks, all the absurdities coming out of Tucker Carlson's mouth, that maybe we all have to do DNA testing, we have to prove our lineage, prove that we descended from Abraham. Who says that we're really entitled to the land? Maybe the Palestinian people are the real Semites. Now it's become very, very clear, very apparent that if the Goyim, if the non-Jews, if the people with millions of, an audience and millions of people will say, listen, you guys are a bunch of robbers, a bunch of crooks, therefore the Torah couldn't start from Hachodesh Hazel Lachem, the Torah start from Bereshis to show that no, we are the ones that really have the fear claim, we are the ones that are entitled to Eretz Yisrael, and it's the Zman HaGeula. We're going to get back to Eretz Yisrael.